Green and eager to take on the world, you find yourself trekking into the nearby wilderness in search of your fortune. Not so soon after setting foot outside the safety of town, a group of repugnant bandits ambush you from the trees with the determination to savagely beat you to death. And they probably will, unless you're adequately prepared. Or maybe you'll run into a pack of ravenous wolves instead. Or even, you'll run into both at the same time. You'll probably die, but then you might make it out alive if you're well prepared and choose your moves strategically. Just staying alive in Stoneshard is an accomplishment on its own. Stoneshard could be described as a hardcore roguelike survival, death, pain, and suffering simulator. At least that's how I like to describe it, given the amount of times that I died. It has some traditional roguelike elements, turn-based combat, permadeath, procedural generation, and survival elements. This game is challenging and will punish you if you don't plan well and really think things through. Let's start with a bit of a truncated history. The game was well on its way after a successful Kickstarter funding campaign netting a fat wad of cash in the triple digits from thousands of backers. It made its way to the Steam Early Access program and seems to have enjoyed a steady player base since its debut, which is promising for the future of the game.
Damn it. Where am I?
You are awake, just in time for the ritual. We'll have a use for you so very soon. Don't try anything funny or you'll end up like one of your friends. Perhaps I should check on him again. All that fresh blood, that must have drained by now.
Curses. Doesn't look like we won that fight. I need to get out of here before this bastard returns. Looks like my shackles are rusted to the core.
The game starts off with a well-designed and immersive tutorial. If you've been following this game, then you're probably aware that the tutorial is free to try out as a demo. It's pretty rare to see demos for games anymore. The tutorial introduces you to the basic concepts of gameplay in an engaging manner, with which you use to fight your way out of the dungeon and confront a bad guy. It can seem a bit drawn out though, especially if you die. In that case, you have to go all the way back to your last autosave, and as far as I'm aware, you can't skip the tutorial. I found myself really enjoying the boss battle at the end, as it mixed the basic combat that you've learned making your way through the lower levels with things such as avoiding ground-based attacks, as well as interesting special attacks from the boss itself. Don't get too invested in the tutorial character, however, because after you finish with the prologue, you'll not be taking anything you've gained with you. The actual game starts you off on the tails of the prologue, with you no longer playing as Varen, but instead as your own character. There is a list of pre-generated characters, as well as the option to create your own in the future updates to the game. One of the most immediately noticeable features of the game is that it is turn-based all the time. Even just moving through the town is turn-based. Time only moves forward when you do. This element of the game gives you all the time in the world to plan your next move. The world, despite its gritty atmosphere, is actually quite enjoyable. The map's procedurally generated, so you're going to get a different one every time, including the dungeons. The towns themselves are bustling with detail and life. The residents have their own daily schedules, such as closing their shops for the night. While the wilderness areas such as forests and plains aren't much to look at, there are points of interest that often have an interesting story, or even a side quest. The dungeons are randomly generated and stuffed to the brim with enemies, dangers, and hidden treasures. The map doesn't show you exactly where you're at, so you have to use some brain power to figure out the direction you're going. The art style for Stoneshard is nothing short of fantastic. Even being pixel art, it has such a great look to it that you can't help but admire. The music is also top-notch and sufficiently atmospheric. The voice acting where present is also of surprising quality. Stoneshard has a lot of features common to similar titles amongst the genre. Inventory screens with slots to equip items in each hand, on your head, hands, feet, etc. You'll also find yourself doing a lot of inventory management as you progress in the game. There will be much more loot than you can ever hope to haul back to town, so you will have to make the decision of what is more valuable. Would you rather carry that valuable loot or extra medical supplies? As you level up, you will also earn attribute points to assign to various stats, these being strength, agility, perception, vitality, and willpower. The impact of attributes isn't readily observable. Perhaps later down the line it will be with future updates, or perhaps if you min-max your character. You'll certainly recognize the skill tree system. Various skill trees exist for various activities and combat styles, such as magic, weapons, etc. The skill points spent in these skill trees will unlock various passive and active bonuses to your character in specific areas, such as using swords or maces. Each weapon type lends itself to a certain style of fighting, and the plethora of skill choices means that there will be many ways to customize and min-max your playstyle. Unfortunately, at this time there are several skill trees that haven't been implemented yet that I wanted to try out. Just like in real life, you have to eat and drink. You'll have to constantly make sure you have access to food and water, but it isn't too overwhelming. Neglecting to eat or drink regularly will give you debuffs that negatively affect your combat performance. Oddly enough, sleep is not technically a requirement for survival. I haven't noticed a reason to sleep beyond saving the game, waiting for shops to open, or getting an XP buff. No actual survival elements tied to it. While in combat, enemies have a chance to inflict serious wounds. Your leg can become wounded, for instance, and may require a splint to stabilize the wound. Attacks can cause bleeding as well, and you will need something to bandage the wound to keep yourself from bleeding out. You can use healing salves to aid in the healing process. Getting wounded hurts, and the pain from these wounds can impair you. You can mitigate the pain by drinking alcohol, but that comes with its own set of problems, such as inebriation. There are other solutions to dealing with pain, as well as the inebriating effects of alcohol. The game provides various ailments and afflictions, and various ways to counteract them with herbs, potions, and the like. The combat at its core is very basic. You click to attack. Underneath the hood, however, it's very much an RNG sort of system. At any time, an enemy can land a devastating hit that brings you from combat ready to on your last sliver of health. Seeing as I get the vibe that the game is supposed to be hard, I don't really get a feeling of challenge or difficulty out of this kind of combat system. In a sense, there's no skill challenge in that. You just hope that the random numbers end up in your favor. Leveling up your character to unlock abilities in the skill tree and finding better gear are big factors in being able to survive a fight. One-on-one combat is generally manageable, but fighting several at once is more or less a death sentence, since the risk to your health is greatly increased. You can use doorways and choke points to your advantage in order to fight only one enemy at a time, but that can often still end up wearing you down too much, and the last guy finishes you off. Sometimes you might not be paying 100% attention and accidentally stumble into a group of enemies that proceed to slaughter you, which leads to my biggest gripe about the game currently. The save mechanics in this game, in my opinion, are absolute garbage. Players can only save by sleeping in an inn or at various camps found throughout the world. If you're in the middle of a dungeon and you have to leave the game, sorry, you're screwed. If the RNG isn't in your favor and you get killed, sorry, you're screwed again. You'll have to just start over again from your last save. It's quite easy to lose hours of gameplay due to this system, and I lost my share. While I can appreciate the sense of immersion and hardcore-ness, I just don't find having to spend half my playtime retracing my steps, hoping that combat RNGs will be kind to me this time around. I don't know. It's just not my idea of fun. Maybe I'm just too casual. Who knows? Despite all my gripes about the game currently, I think there's a lot of potential here. The core of the game seems to be highly functional, as I don't recall experiencing a single bug during my gameplay. The unique skills, fantastic aesthetics, and meaningful survival system really show off what the game is capable of. With this in mind, hopefully we can see a lot of content updates in the future, and some iteration on things such as the save mechanics. Definitely be putting some more time into this game, and I'm looking forward for what it becomes.